With the opening of the Chimlong Park, that's really important. What's important to them is lots of other people build because they don't want to be isolated as well. So for me, Hengqin is really, really important because at a strategic level it demonstrates the ongoing commitment of both Macau and the China governments going forward. It clearly creates opportunities for the diversification of non-gaming opportunities into Hengqin, but we need to sit and watch how that is managed and how that evolves. And I think at a point in time in the future, we all will want to be engaged because it's part of the overriding growth of this region.
Yeah. Kamal, Grant?
Yeah, clearly it's very important strategically, but I think we should also see it as part of a broader picture in Pearl River Delta. So the entire Pearl River Delta will become ever more interconnected, and you can see on your slide here, we also, on the other side of the Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge, effectively gives Macau a world-class international airport. So I think all of these improvements in surrounding infrastructure, transport connectivity and development are positive for Macau, but obviously Hengqin holds a special place in that map.
It is a huge positive, and I think for a newcomer to Hong Kong or to Macau, you're usually stunned by the vision of people lining up to buy Hermes. And that's really about supply and demand. And I think with the amount of rooms that are planned for Hengqin, the amount of luxury product, room product, and properties that are opening in 16, I think you're going to have a similar effect with that kind of demand. So again, we're incredibly bullish on what's going to happen in 2016 when all these properties open.
So we've got 5, 6, 7 minutes. I've got more questions, but if there are questions from the audience, we'd be happy to take a couple. Yes?
We're sitting in this structure here that's really built for the MICE trade. I want to know what the opinion of the two other gentlemen here are of the MICE business and how that will impact on the future of Macau.
I think in terms of a complete diversified leisure destination, MICE business is critical. The great challenge with MICE is you've got to build big buildings before you've actually attracted the business. At the same time, the China meetings business itself is evolving rapidly and changing in many, many different ways. From our perspective, we see probably the incentive business, given the nature of our organisations, is probably the niche that we would be looking at. But clearly, as you move forward, and if there's anything we can learn from Las Vegas, and is that as you mature, you do have to add the meetings component to the business. The great global challenge now is what's actually happening globally because of technology. Everybody said meetings would die once we had all this interconnectivity, and there was a dip, but I think we're starting to see that come back. But I suspect it will come back in a different way. And like everything else you do in this part of the world, you can't just do what you did anywhere else in the world. You've got to understand the marketplace and modify the delivery based on what the China consumer and your principal source markets require.
One last question. Just back in the back there, I believe, and we'll call it quits after this.
As an outside observer of Macau, it seems to me that there's a lot of talk about revenues all the time. Maybe the panel could talk a little bit about the nuances of margins as they relate to these different segments we'll be talking about, and how yield managing those margins is important to a strategy around mass, or premium mass, or VIP.
What was the question?
Margins, margin differentials across businesses. How are you managing towards that? We have focused a lot on top line.
We very much are focused on margins, and again, that's something we're incredibly proud of. As you lay a comparison between our company and the competition, that's something we're entirely focused on, and we don't compromise on margins. We don't offer discounts. Our incentives for our guests are more about the service, the product, the luxury environment that we provide. We are going to continue to focus on the margins, and that's why you're seeing a shift in the mix between VIP and premium mass and other elements of our offerings. But in every segment of our revenues, we're focused on margin, and that's not going to change in the future.
I think broadly, we look at both components that drive the margin. One is the business mix, and we try to allocate the assets according to the best business mix. But secondly, of course, we continue to drive operating efficiencies as well to manage the fixed cost component.
Quite clearly, I think to your point, there is a significant advantage in the mass sector versus in the junket VIP segment. And again, if you look at a smaller property, the smaller properties, they're obviously always going to be much more focused on profitability, just in driving revenues. But I go back to my comment about what happened in 2009. 2009 focused everybody's attention on cost. And those of us that were here understand it, and I think it's in the DNA of every organisation now. So I think the critical point for all of us is that we're very, very aware that profitless volume doesn't make sustainable businesses. And we just have the privilege of being in a marketplace with, if you run a business really well, it delivers significantly for you.
I think that is a good closing note for this panel focused on the mass market opportunity. I think the panelists and others from their organizations will be around for a little bit this morning to have other conversations. Certainly those of us from Bloomberg, as I'd mentioned before, are in the exhibit hall later on, in addition to being around at some of the meetings today. And we'll look forward to moving forward, and another interesting presentation and commentary coming directly after we come off the stage. So thank you all very much. It's a pleasure.